Hello there guys, welcome to eosacro. In this video I'm going to show you exactly how to create this simple looking bubble. I'm going to talk about the kind of physics involved and also how exactly you can start replicating the similar effects in Maya. So to first begin with, let's start by understanding exactly what all is involved in this bubble. To begin with, as you can see, this entire bubble doesn't actually have any volume inside. It is only the surface which you can see on the outside, and this entire surface happens to be reflective, so the light is coming in and actually bouncing off. Now this reflection is the only thing which is actually colored, and you can see it's quite bright. Next, another thing you have to notice is that the reflections in the center are not as bright as the ones on the edges. This is known as the Fresnel reflections, so we're going to take care of that too. So let me first start by sharing with you why exactly this bubble is so colorful in these reflections. So to understand that, we'll have to know about the interference of light. So what interference of light basically means is that if you like you already would know that light is actually a form of a wave. So when two or more waves actually meet up, they can add on top of each other. So let's say we have a straight like a pond with a single like completely plain pond, and I drop a stone or something into it, so that actually starts creating a wave. And let's say that wave is flowing in this direction, and then I actually drop another pebble or something on the other side, and then it starts creating a wave, and that moves in the opposite direction. When both these waves actually meet, they actually create a much larger wave in the center, and then they go on their own direction. So basically this is what interference does with light also. So here in the bubble, what happens is, this is a very thin membrane of water, and when the light actually enters this membrane, it reflects off the inner surface, and when it is coming outwards, the incident ray and the ray which is coming out actually start interfering with each other and start changing their colors. So this membrane itself is not actually always the same thickness, so it could change the thickness, like let's say this. So the light which is being reflected in this area would not be the same as the light being reflected in this area. So it actually keeps changing a lot on the different areas of the surface itself. So that's the reason you see that the reflection on the very edge is almost the same color as the one in the center. So we're going to try and replicate almost all of these effects. First thing is, because it's purely reflections which are involved, we are trying to go and replicate only the reflections and not much else. And next, because the reflections are more on the edges, as you can see, the reflections in the center of this bubble are not much, whereas the reflections on the edges are much more sharper. So we're going to try and replicate those Fresnel reflections. And apart from that, usually we have to get the other side of the bubble. So for example, let's say I'm looking at the bubble from this direction. The front surface of the bubble is going to have much more colorful reflections than the back side of the bubble. That's usually just how it is because of the way light reflects. So we're going to try and replicate the back side of the surface. So the front side is going to be reflecting separately and differently, and so is the back side. So also in the end, I'm going to show you how exactly you can set up the bubble so that when it moves, the colors actually change accordingly. And also, even if you have a big particle swarm of these bubbles, each one is going to reflect exactly. So I'll shift over to Maya and start creating this. So here within Maya, I've taken a new scene, and I'm going to start by creating a simple sphere. I'll just scale it up. Let me put it into the view and just render this to show you what I have. So this is a simple sphere, just a Lambert shade applied and default lighting. Now first thing is, I want to get rid of the default lighting and apply HDRI lighting into the scene. So first let me switch over to mental ray. I'll go into the render settings, and here under render options, I'll turn on remove the enable default light option, so that right now if I just render, I just get a blank scene. But so on the alpha channel, you can easily see what exactly is there in the background. So now let's actually start creating the material itself. First thing is, all you need is a reflective material. It doesn't really matter whether if it's a blinn or a fong. There's not much of a difference here. So I'll just go apply a simple blinn material on top of this. to just show you what exactly is going to happen, most of the times I'll be creating the shaders and applying them on a surface shader so you can see the difference. So first I'll also go ahead and create a different surface shader. There's an easy way of analyzing what exactly is happening in the scene. So the surface shader is going to be a test, and then the blend shader itself is going to be nothing but the bubble shader. So now I have a blend shader and a simple test shader. First thing I'm going to show you is what exactly 3D textures are. So let me go ahead and apply my test shader back again. I'll also change my view to a graphite hypershade with perspective. Let me get rid of this time slider. Okay, so first step is I'm going to go ahead and start by creating 3D textures. So in the 3D texture layout, I'll just create a crater. I'll bring in my bubble texture in here and also my test. So first thing is, let me go ahead and apply this texture onto my out color on the test shader and hit render. As you can see, the texture is too small, it is too detailed, and really nothing can be made out. So the reason for this is because the 3D shader comes with this 3D node which is too small for now. So I'll just go about and start increasing this. So let me go ahead and make it 10 times larger, and it's big, but let me make it, let's say, 50. Okay, so this is quite big enough. So this is the amount of color difference which I'm going to get from this node. So I'm okay with this. I'll just go select this, apply it, put it on a different layer and hide it for now. Whenever I'm going to render, I'm going to select the sphere, press F on my keyboard so it's focused, and then I'm going to hit render. So it's always going to be of the same size. So let me go ahead and remove all the other images I have. So this is the first texture I have. I'll just save this, and now if I take my actual 3D texture node and start moving it, you will see that the texture itself has moved. It's a three-dimensional texture and it has moved. And not only this, what's the best part about it is if I actually move the object itself, you can see the texture again moves. So this is a very useful thing to have, because as a bubble actually starts moving in my scene, the texture is actually going to move too. So here in my viewport, I just enabled hardware rendering. You can see if I select the texture palette and move it, the 3D texture actually moves about, and this is quite useful when we are trying to create materials which have to change according to the space. So I have a simple thing created now. What I'm going to start doing is creating the bubble shader itself. So first I'll go into my test shader, and as you have seen, this is what the crater texture does. Next thing, as I had shown you in Photoshop, the color actually changes from when it's facing to when it goes away from the surface. So the center portion of the bubble is actually facing us, so this is supposed to have a particular color, and on the edges it's supposed to have a different one. So to replicate that, I'll go ahead and create a node called sampler info, and this one I'm going to plug into a ramp. So this right now the ramp is connected to this place 3D texture, which is not really necessary once you have used sampler info, but still I'm not going to remove that. I'm going to connect the sampler info into the ramp, and I'm going to tell the facing ratio is supposed to give the V coordinates or the U. You can choose any one of them. So because V is actually the default within the ramp itself, I'm going to choose the V coordinates. And now once it is connected to the V coordinates, I'll just go and connect this ramp into the out color, and in the viewport you can see something happened, but it's not the actual output. Let me show you what this does. I'll just focus in on here and hit render, and as you can see, the part of the sphere which is actually facing the camera has blue color on top of it, and the edges have green, and the complete edge which is facing away from me almost 90 degrees is red in color. So even if I change the direction, it always is going to maintain the same color combination. So this is very useful to create that fall off effect. So I'm going to use this to create that. Now I have this 3D texture and I have this ramp, and I actually want both of them blended in together. So to create this blend, I'm going to just use a simple node in Maya called this blend colors, So all this blend colors does is take two different values and blend them in together. So I'll just apply the ramp into color 1 and this crater into color 2, and this blend is now going to be connected to test. And let me focus it in here and render. So as you can see, it's a combination of both of these colors and it looks quite interesting. So I'm going to actually go ahead and start by going to blend colors and changing the values. If I set it to 0, you can see that all I get is the color 2, because 0 means the blend value for color 1 is kept at 0, whereas if I keep it at 1, the color 1 is completely used. So it creates kind of interesting effects. So I'll just keep it at a median where I get both of these best of both worlds basically. So I have this. Now the main thing I want to do is use this only on the reflections on the surface. So for doing that, I'll just come back to my blend and take this blend material and put it into specular colors. But to see exactly how reflectivity is actually going to work, let me apply the blend material on the object. I'll go into my render settings. So in the render settings, I can go to indirect lighting, and I'm using indirect lighting only for the image based lighting purposes. I'm not going to use final gather or anything as such, because there is no surface which will be rendered out. So I just created an image based lighting node, and in the image name parameters here, I'll just go choose a HDRI map which I've already taken in. If you don't really have any HDRI maps of your own, you can go to DeviantArt and just browse for HDRI, and they have loads of maps which are available for free. You can just go to any one of these texture packs and download them. There's some really good ones, some outdoor and indoor ones, and you can use any of them. I'll just have one HDRI map of my own here. I'll just open that up, and immediately you can see here within Maya that this is being applied completely. The main thing is this HDRI map is being used only for reflections. I don't really want this to be seen because it's going to give me a very pixelated look. So I'll just go turn off primary visibility for rendering. So now once that is done, I'll just come back and hit render once more. So now you can easily see that it starts looking quite reflective. It has all the details from the environment seen, but it doesn't really look like a bubble yet. The reason being that it's not actually transparent, it's actually like a mirror ball. So to actually start getting the transparency, I'll just go select it, go into the bubble shader. I'll increase the transparency to 100% and hit render once more. And immediately you can start seeing that it looks transparent and it starts looking like a bubble immediately. But first thing you notice is that all of the reflections on this are completely the same color as the background itself, but I want these reflections to have a bit of the colors which exist in the color ramp which I've just created, which is this blend colors node which you had seen. So to get that, all I'm going to do is take this blend colors and put it into my specular color options here on the blend node. Now if I go ahead, I'll save this and hit render once more. You'll see exactly how this looks. So just remember that the more amount of soap you have and the thinner the bubble looks and the more longer it lasts, the more amount of brighter colors you have. So don't let it be this reflective or these many colors. Don't let it be so oversaturated all the time. So you'll have to go ahead and edit that a bit. So anyway, you have that. Now the next thing I had told you was that the front surface of the bubble has more amount of color in it and more saturation compared to the back surface. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So to do this, I'll just go take in the mental ray nodes. I have this MIB two-sided node. I'll just take that. This is useful when shading the front side of the face with a different color and the back side of a face with a different color. So I'm going to take this blend colors which I have and put it into the front surface, and I want to desaturate it before I actually connect it to the back side. So to desaturate it, I'll go take a remap HSV value from HSV node from here. I'm going to connect the blend colors into the color input, and this remapped value actually has to go into, let me just zoom in a little bit. So all I'm doing is I have this two-sided material. I've taken the blend colors, I've applied it to the front face. I also want it applied to the back face, but I want it desaturated before applying. So I just connected this HSV remap value. I'll connect it to the back face. Now in the HSV remap, I'm going to go and take the saturation a bit down and probably even the lightness, or let me just look at it later on. So I just connected these, and now I have this two-sided material ready. I'll go ahead and connect this to my test shader to just show you exactly what's going to happen to my out color. And I'll go select my sphere and connect my test back to it. If I hit render this time, you can see that this is the default thing which I had already seen, but now I'll go select all the faces and I'll go flip the normals. So this time if I go ahead and render it, you can see it's desaturated. So this was a saturated version and this is a desaturated version. So all the faces which are not facing the camera get the desaturated version, and the ones facing the camera get the saturated one. And what I actually did here in the viewport just now is selected all the faces and just flip their normals. You can easily do that by selecting all the faces and shift right clicking and taking face normals and telling reverse or reverse normals. Any one of these will do. So let me come back. So this is all I have done. So this is the front face which has the saturated ones and the back ones which had the desaturated ones. I'll go ahead and start connecting this into my specular color inside the blend shader. So this okay, I did not save that previous one, so let me go ahead and do that once more. I'll just connect the previous blend mode which I had and render that. Okay, this is the material. Okay, this was the previous bubble I had. I'll just save this, and now this is the new one which I have. I'll render that. Okay, so the difference will be slight, but you can easily make out that the background is now a bit more lighter. It's not as saturated, and that definitely starts looking much better. So this is what I wanted. So that is done. Next step involves the reflection itself. So as you can see, the entire bubble is reflecting the same way. It doesn't have any higher amount of reflectivity on the edges and lower in the center. It's just purely reflective throughout. So I want to add in some kind of Fresnel reflections on top of it. So to do that, I anyway have the sampler info node over here already, so I'm going to start by using this. So first thing I'll do is I'll take in remap value. So with this remap value, I'll connect the sampler info to the remap value input. So facing ratio goes into the input value, and this remap node now becomes the reflectivity value. I'll just explain what I've done. Okay, so sampler info gives a facing ratio which tells which part of the object is facing us and which is not. So with this remap value, I can start actually telling how that color has to be manipulated. So I'll just apply the test material again. I'll connect the remap to out color. So what I now have is this. So I have white where the object is facing me and black where it is not. What I can do with remap value now, just take these colors and interchange them. So instead of black and white, I have just kept to white and black. So now if I re-render this, you can see that there is black wherever the face is facing exactly towards the camera and white on the edges. So I can go ahead and add in some extra colors inside. So I'll just go take the reflections towards the edge, and now as you can see, it's the edge has increased completely. And if I do the same thing on the reverse side, you can see the edge is becoming much more brighter, whereas the center is becoming darker. So I'll just go start setting it up so that the edges have more amount of reflections. Let me just bring it in. Okay, so also I don't need perfect black in the center because the bubble does has a little bit of reflection in the center. So I'll just open this black and give it a slight amount of value so that now I basically have this. This is going to be my reflection map for the bubble itself. So now that is what is actually connected to the blend. I'll apply that to the bubble. For now, if you observe this, the line connecting the remap value to the test node is actually green in color, and the line connecting it to the blend material, the bubble material I have, is actually blue in color. This basically means that here I have a color value which is coming out, and here I actually have the out value, a single value which is coming out. So I actually want this to be the same color value, so I'll just go redo this connection. So I'll just go and other, I'll just tell I want the out color, any one of these will do, and I want it to go into reflectivity. So reflectivity, I'll just connect it there. So now I have the out color value red going into reflectivity, and now if I hit render, you can see that it's actually working. The outer edge of the bubble actually has the perfect reflection, whereas the center does not. So now I can actually go into remap color and I change this till I get the exact look that I'm waiting for. So I can start changing these colors. Okay, so as you can see, I'm starting to get the exact bubble look. Now the next step is to get the final output with this jagged edges gone. I'll just go into my render settings again and come into quality. I'll change it to production and let this be gauze. I'll hit render. And as you can see, immediately the quality is much better, the edges are better. The only other problem is the sphere itself is not smooth, so I'll just hit smooth on that. The final thing is you only need to put in a background and start rendering this out. So the final step to get the exact look, which I would suggest, is to add a light into the scene. So let me go ahead and create a simple light. I'll create a simple point light, and let's say I'll keep it here on the side and hit render. So as you can see, it's creating some kind of reflections, but it's not exact. The reason for this being the blend material for now, the specular roll-off and the eccentricity are set to the wrong value per se, so we can actually go ahead and edit this. So next all I have to do is actually just come in and decrease the eccentricity and increase the specular roll-off, not too much, just a little bit enough. So and then hit render. And that basically starts giving me this. I can go about and select the light itself. I can increase the brightness of this light, and it creates this beautiful looking reflection on the bubble. So probably wherever you have the sun or something as such, you can put in a reflective dot like that. Now please remember that this amount of render time is mostly because of the quality I have set. Most of the things which the software is doing here to create this, for example the sampler info, the ramp or the crater, don't really need a lot of calculation time because these are procedural and they are calculated as required. But your HDRI map, if the quality is quite high, then it definitely will take more time, but not as much as if you have Final Gather or something as such turned on. So this is how you can easily create a simple bubble. I hope you understood this. And also one more thing to note is that if you want, you can actually go about into your render settings, under quality frame buffer, you can change it from simple 8-bit image to, let's say, a float point 32-bit, and I'll go render this once more. Okay, so this is rendered once more, and I can go into color management in the render view, and by changing exposure you can actually see that the bubble can be composited and graded properly to match up any footage you have. So this is quite a benefit. So that's one thing. Now let me finish by showing you how exactly you can create a big swarm of these bubbles quite easily. So to do that, I'll first go ahead create a let me first add this on a layer of its own and hide that. So to do that, what I'll do is just go into my dynamics. I'll create a particle emitter. I'll create a volume emitter. I'll just leave everything at default and just create it. Increase the size. Okay. So with this, I'll also open up my range slider and the time slider. For keeping it at the first frame, I'll just hit play. So you can see it created loads of these points. So I'm going to start using these points to create bubbles. So I just selected these points. I'll go into my solver, initial state set for selected. So the initial state is set. I can now delete the emitter itself, so only my particles are there, so they are completely distributed. Now I'll just select my sphere. I'll select my particles and I'll just tell I have to instance them. I don't want the particle itself. Okay, and okay, just create. So I basically have all of my particles created. They are duplicated and they actually have all of this added in. Now you can go ahead and actually hide these particles individually if you want, but I can just remove them from the Lambert material there for now. Next thing you can do is go ahead and apply random size so you can get different variations on that. Now, so pretty much that's it for now. You can go ahead, keep it in between wherever you want, and hit render. Save that and render. And the benefit of having the 3D texture can easily be seen here, as each and every bubble which is at different positions has different colors being applied on top of it. So some are yellow in color, some are green, some are blue, so all of that kind of helps out. Okay, so let it finish up. Also, because it is at 32-bit depth and these are only reflective, they actually add on top of each other. So if you have loads of these bubbles at the same place, they'll actually start creating the white color, which is how they actually have to behave in the real world. So this is how you can easily create simple bubbles. And for those of you who are interested, this is created only for some work in progress which we have, where we are trying to create some realistic bubbles which are going into the scene. So we have worked a lot on creating the depth of field effects and such, which work with transparent objects. So I'll be creating a video on that sometime in the future, but for now I really hope you found this video in particular very useful. So if you have any doubts, you can put them in the comments section, and all of your feedback is always welcome. So I'll see you in the next one.